Hey guys, I'm Rich Woods from NeoWin. Today we're comparing the Lumia 635 to the 640 to the 650. Mainly we're focusing on the 640 and the 650. I think it's pretty clear that by now the Lumia 635 is left in the dust. But it's fair to talk about it because there are some things to talk about here because they are all kind of similar devices. Now the Lumia 635, it was launched alongside Windows Phone 8.1. By the way, the reason that these devices are all asleep right now is to show that the Lumia 640 introduced Glance, and the 650 supports it as well. So now that we've established that, let's wake these devices up. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is obviously performance. Lumia 635 and Lumia 640 use the exact same chipset, 1.2 gigahertz Snapdragon 400. Now, Qualcomm has different models. This is the one that's always used in Lumias. So it comes with an Adreno 305 GPU. Now, the Lumia 650 uses Snapdragon 212. Snapdragon 200 series is typically Qualcomm's lowest end chipsets. Now, they've made a lot of improvements like LTE support, a better GPU, 1080p video capture. So really, Snapdragon 212 is just about on par with Snapdragon 400. I'm not going to go too deep into it. If you want, you could check out the first impressions video of the Lumia 650 to go a little deeper into that. As it stands right now, we can assume that they all have just about the same performance level in terms of the chipset. Now, there's also a matter of RAM. The Lumia 630 and 635 here, these guys shipped with 512 megabytes of RAM. Now, the 635 does have a 1 gigabyte RAM variant, which is, I believe, the Virgin Mobile variant. There might be a couple others out there. But the 1 gigabyte variant, in terms of performance and RAM being part of that, all three of these phones are pretty much right on the same level because they all would have 1 gigabyte of RAM. Now, the one I have right in front of you here is the 512 megabytes RAM variant. Now, there's also the matter of display because, as you can see from these phones, Microsoft has done a hell of a job upgrading these phones in terms of features throughout these three generations. Right, we had a 480p display here. It's an IPS LCD, 4.5 inches. Okay, nothing spectacular. It wasn't terrible, and considering that the Snapdragon 400 had a better GPU than the 200, you actually got a nice boost in performance from, say, the Lumia 530 or the 535, which the 530 also had a 480p display. All right, so with the 640, they upgraded that to 720p, right? So we finally have an HD display with a 294 ppi pixel density because it's 5 inches at 720p, right? But it's still IPS LCD. Now, it's beautiful. But then we move on to the 650 here, which this phone actually feels premium. It actually feels like a flagship because now we have AMOLED, right? So you can see this phone is beautiful. All right. In the first impressions, I wasn't that impressed with the HD display or with the AMOLED display. And as I used it more and more, I actually became more and more impressed with this display. All right. It really feels like a premium phone. Another thing that we see on lower end Lumias is that they don't have the coating that you see on flagships, right? Flagship phones have a coating on them that tries to prevent fingerprints from getting stuck to them. And lower end Lumias don't have that, and they get fingerprints on them really easily. I don't know if the 650 has that coating, but it certainly feels like it does. It certainly feels a lot more premium in every way. All right, so that was a big upgrade for the 600 series. It's the first AMOLED we've seen from the 600 series. All right. Also, cameras are a big upgrade. You notice that the 635 here has no front camera, has no flash on the rear camera. It's 5 megapixels with autofocus. That's worth noting now because the 530 did not have autofocus, it just fixed focus. The 640 upgrades that to 8 megapixels in the rear with a single LED flash and 0.9 megapixels in the front. So the 640 really was a huge upgrade in terms of features, in terms of just about everything from the 635. It actually made it into a solid mid-range contender. Um, it was very exciting because really, I mean, that you can't. That Microsoft was having selfie contests with this phone when it didn't have a front-facing camera. It was crazy, but the 640 really put it into its own. Now, moving on to the Lumia 650's camera, you notice the camera on the rear is roughly, or as far as I can tell, it's the exact same thing as the Lumia 640. It's 8 megapixels, quarter-inch sensor size, f2.2 aperture, exactly the same. The front, though, is 5 megapixel. So that's a huge bump from the 0.9 megapixels that we got from the Lumia 640. Now, the Lumia 640 could probably be seen as the biggest upgrade in terms of features in the 600 series. The Lumia 650 almost feels like a flagship. 640 introduced, because most of these features, HD display, rich capture, which I'm just about to talk about, these were introduced in the 640. And they really just seem to be really refined in the 650. So yeah, they did introduce rich capture in the 640, and the 640 actually has a feature that the 650 does not, and a lot of Lumia enthusiasts have been clamoring for this. And I know people who went out and bought 950s when they came out, and then went and bought a 930 because of this feature specifically. Now, rich capture, as we can see here, what rich capture allows you to do, it allows you to adjust the exposure of an image after you take it. So you can take a picture with a flash, and the foreground of the image is going to be really bright. The background is going to be really dark. If you take it without the flash, it's all going to be just kind of dim. So rich capture allows you to take the photo with the flash, without the flash, or use a simple slider to choose anywhere in between. Okay, it's a brilliant feature. And the fact they brought it to lower end phones with the 640 was amazing. Now, you can see I just turned rich capture on. That is something you can't do on Windows 10 mobile devices. I know, sounds crazy, right? It's true. You can't turn rich capture on completely on Windows 10 mobile devices, but you can on Windows Phone 8.1 devices that have been upgraded to Windows 10. Okay, so what we're going to see here, we turn it on, we get automatic. Right? So you can't force rich capture on a Windows 10 mobile device. The 550, the 950, the 950 XL are all the same in these terms. If you have a 930 though, and you've upgraded it to Windows 10 mobile, you can force rich capture. All right, so it's a nice feature. Now, another thing I want to talk about, obviously, now that we have the 635 back here, is design. Okay, and the design of the 650 is what makes it really feel premium. We have a metal frame here, and that's something that a lot of people wanted from the 950. If you ask me, just get a Mozo case. I don't see why that should prevent you from getting the phone. But the 640 and the 635 generally have the same design here. You notice that the 635 is glossy. The 640 was also, except for the black model. Now, here in the United States, they only sell the black model now. You can buy removable backs for it. When they started selling it, they had white, black, cyan, and orange. And the cyan and orange were glossy just like this. The 640 XL was matte, but that's about it. But other than that, they do share the same design. In fact, the Lumia 550 also shares design with the 640. I've been reviewing the 550 for a couple weeks now, and I got to tell you, I get these phones confused all the time because they just feel the same, right? But you notice that now Microsoft is sticking to only using the Microsoft logo on the back rather than actually writing the word Microsoft, which they did for a while, all right? Now, the 650's design, on the other hand, like I said, metal frame. We haven't seen another phone with a metal frame quite like this. We have seen other phones with metal frames. I have the 830 here that had a metal frame. Also, the 930 shipped with a metal frame. Okay, other phones, the 925, the Icon, which the Icon was just a variant of the 930. Or, well, I should say the 930 was a variant of the Icon, because the Icon came first, um, but that was exclusive to Verizon. The 930 was the international model. Now, here's the thing about these two phones. You could get a Lumia 640 if you're in the United States. Well, really anywhere, but it's the AT&T model. You can get it for $29. $29 from the Microsoft Store from Best Buy. That's just how much it costs. It's not a 2-year contract. It's not an X plan. It's not subsidized in any way. It's just a $29 smartphone, and it's a pretty damn good one. All right, so it's hard to justify why you'd spend $200 on this when you can get this for $29. All right. Now, like I said, it's the AT&T model, which means that it's locked. You can't buy this phone and just use it on T-Mobile. It's not that hard to get it unlocked. It's optimized, obviously, for AT&T's LTE bands. I haven't checked to see if T-Mobile's LTE bands would work, or if it has any of them, because a lot of times it does have other LTE bands in it. Or you might just get 3G or HSPA+, but still it's a $29 phone. It's not hard to get it unlocked. AT&T does provide a very easy way for you to get AT&T phones unlocked, as long as you don't owe them money on the phone, like if you have a Next plan, or if you're under contract with the phone. Okay, so the rules for that, though, are that you have to be an AT&T customer for a certain amount of time, or you have to be a former AT&T customer. So if you've been an AT&T customer, you can buy this phone for $29, have it unlocked. If you know someone who uses AT&T, and I think we all, at least in the United States, we all know somebody who uses AT&T. And really, you just got to get them to fill out that form for you. They'll send them the unlock code, and you can unlock it and use it on whatever network you like, anywhere in the world, because it's a GSM phone. Now, obviously not Verizon or Sprint, because their networks are set up a little differently. Right? So that's about all there is to say about these phones, right? We can go into benchmarks a bit. I have both Antutu apps here. Antutu, this is an old beta. I know people love to remind me of this as soon as I use it. It's an old beta from 2012, but truthfully, at least they're testing the same thing. Yeah, it's an abandoned app, but at least both apps are testing the same thing on each phone. And Antutu does have a new app. A lot of people complained about the Snapdragon 212 in this phone. They said it was a downgrade, but as we can see here, it's really better according to this benchmark. I have been using this phone, and I find it to be fantastic, and I find it to be super fast, and just everything is really snappy. Let's try the other Antutu app, because this, like I said, it's a abandoned beta from 2012. People always remind me that when I use this in a video, but the scores, you can compare the scores to each other on Windows Phone. You can't compare it to Android Antutu scores. That's the only thing that you have to remember here. Now we can see from these benchmarks here that just about everything is better on the 650, which is interesting because we expected a better CPU, but I wouldn't really expect a better GPU. Snapdragon 400 comes with Adreno 305. Snapdragon 212 comes with Adreno 304. So it's nice to see that everything is better, except RAM benchmarks a little bit higher on the Lumia 640. Now, note that I have done quite a few videos on the differences in terms of performance between Windows Phone 8.1 and Windows 10 Mobile. Windows Phone 8.1 is almost universally better in terms of performance across the board, and even benchmarks will be higher on Windows Phone 8.1. I did this test on Windows 10 Mobile for a reason. I mean, obviously, our days are numbered of using Windows Phone 8.1. We're all going to be using Windows 10 Mobile. Microsoft said that the Lumia 640 was designed for Windows 10 Mobile when it came out, which was a little odd because it used Snapdragon 400, which was one of the processors that they added support for in Windows Phone 8.1. Windows 10 Mobile, made for Windows 10 Mobile, would mean Snapdragon 410 or obviously Snapdragon 210 or 212. All right, so everything here looks better, and it's interesting because if we look at those tests from a Lumia 550, which there will be another comparison video on that, it really doesn't show the same kind of results that we see from the Lumia 650. Now, Lumia 550 obviously has Snapdragon 210 instead of 212, and the only difference between 210 and 212 is that the CPU is 1.3 gigahertz on the 212 and 1.1 gigahertz quad core on the 210. In fact, 212 is also known as 210 version 2. Anyway, guys, that's it. I recommend subscribing to NeoWin. You'll see a little white box on the bottom of the video right now that's going to turn into a message that says subscribe. You can click on that white box and subscribe to NeoWin. It is the best YouTube channel in the universe. In the universe. And do you know how big the universe is? It's pretty darn big. So you're going to want to subscribe to the best YouTube channel in that big universe. Anyway, guys, I'm Rich Woods from NeoWin. Have a great night.